Welcome, everybody. It was so nice to hear someone out of nowhere, just out of the blue. They came in, they took class, and they were like, I absolutely love listening to you at work. And I was like, really? I didn't think anybody even listened to this stuff anymore. I felt like maybe they just put it on and just let it go just so I can get some hours up there. But no, it's really nice to hear that some people are actually listening to this stuff and that they do completely agree. And that's okay. Like, I don't expect anybody to agree with half the stuff that I say or do. But it was beautiful to hear that she was like, oh, absolutely, I am 100% on board, blah, 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 blah. It's just wild how some people are like fully like open to it. Even if they agree or not, but they're just like, they're open to it. They want to hear it. They're like, yeah, you know, what you said there was la, 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 la. It was fascinating and blah, blah, blah. And then there's some that just straight up shut down. They're like, nope, this is not somebody I want to talk to. I don't like his opinions. It's just fascinating seeing the spectrum of it all. It's pretty intense, to say the least, right? But yeah, it felt really nice to hear someone say that. And I know now already some people are like, yo, I don't see these clips ever. I don't ever catch any of this on the news. So you bringing this stuff is like, wow, like they really appreciate the work that I'm doing. And I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I'm going to keep going. I have huge plans for the podcast. And they're already starting to shift. Little things are happening. I'm not going to tell you exactly what yet. You'll find out in a couple weeks. But I do believe that it is truly the beginning of things. And where my thoughts and imagination go, I can only imagine where this is really going to go. I have high hopes. With no expectation, though. No expectation whatsoever. I'm trying to just wing it and enjoy the path that I'm on, enjoy the walk, enjoy the scenery, just taking it all in. I'm trying to just be in the now, right here, in the present. Yes, enjoying it. And it's been fun, as difficult as it can be, and sometimes frustrating, like I said, especially when people put you on blast. And I've already had a few like people that were incorporated into my life for a good amount of time have completely were like, no, I can't believe you think like this, blah, blah, blah. And that's okay. I don't mind that. Fortunately, I've been dealing with that my entire life. People not respecting that you might have a different view or opinion. It's a little mind-blowing to be an adult and to see other adults act like that and to just be like, yeah, no, you know, like really like fully upset because I have an opinion on something, instead of like giving me their opinion and being like, why do you think like that? What led to this? Like, where did you get that? Did you just come up with that on your own? None of that stuff. It's just straight like they want to hear their opinion coming out of your mouth. And if they don't want to talk to you. And that's cool. That is absolutely cool. These aren't really the people that I kind of surround myself with at all anyway. If they're that hell-bent on disrupting a friendship or destroying a relationship or anything like that, then I'm totally okay with that. I really am. Because, you know, honestly, where would these people be in the dark times, right? Like, if you would be struggling, they'll leave you high and dry. So I don't need people like that around. Sorry. So it is what it is, right? Mm. Yeah, it's not for everybody, that's for sure. And with that said, let's get into some news clips.
Fortunately, some members of the media use their platforms
to push their own personal bias. To push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
First off, I'm going to have to wait on certain things. Like Trump's cabinet and all the people that he basically wanted to see get put in are now going through the vetting process. They're going through the meat grinder, so to speak. Some of these interviews with Congress and the Senate, it's like, oh my, it's mind blowing. But I think we're going to get into that in the next one. Some of the things I'm just trying to get caught up on with that I found a while ago. So I just figured we'd go into some of those, keep it a little light if possible. Probably not. Yeah. So what's our first clip? You already heard, and I thought it was fascinating. I wanted to like capitalize on the timing, but it just didn't happen. But TikTok got banned and then now it's unbanned. I thought that was real funny and stupid.
The story that's going on with this Red Note app, this China app thing, is amazing. To fill you in on this, it's like the most little brother energy thing ever. And it's happening on a mass scale, like millions of people. So the TikTok ban is going through a couple days. And Gen Z's like, no, fuck you. Because we all know that the Israel lobby is who's behind the TikTok ban. It has nothing to do with China. Look up Project Texas. It's controlled by Oracle already. It's not Chinese propaganda. And even if it was, they're not concerned about our data. If they were concerned about our data, they would have passed data privacy laws, not banning TikTok. Trump tried a TikTok ban bill way back, and it didn't get enough support. And it wasn't until October 7th and the Israel lobby and, support for Palestine breaking out all across TikTok and across young people in general that something actually started to get done. And so now that they're going to ban TikTok, what does Gen Z do? They're like, well, fuck you. We'll go download another Chinese TikTok app. And so Red Note is this Chinese, straight up like in Mandarin app. It has now launched to #1 on the App Store. You can download it yourself. I downloaded it onto my phone just so that I could be a part of that statistic of how many people are downloading it, because that's hilarious. And then what winds up happening? You wind up with American citizens and Chinese citizens just on the same app chatting with each other. They're like teaching each other Mandarin. They're like doing cultural exchange. It's hilarious.
Would be watching grocery hauls. Chinese grocery hauls are insane because they can actually afford food.
All the TikTok refugees, are you kidding? America's literally burning, and I'm so sorry guys that you have to be here. Change the freaking layout to the same layout like TikTok. We hate it. It used to not be like that. Now it's just all fucked. Like your legislation system. Don't worry, we're not like the Americans. We'll not tell you to go back to your country. The internet is a free space, so feel free to roam around.
And the end result is a whole bunch of people realizing that most of our opinions about people in other countries is based entirely on propaganda. And most of the people in this world are just normal, wonderful people, just like you and me, that just love their families and want the best for their people and their communities. And, more or less agree on 99% of things. And that most governments are pretty corrupt and pretty horrible, and we pretty much all generally oppose governments and get along with people. Now, is there a psyop layer to this? Like, is it organic, or is it, artificially inflated or created? Maybe. I mean, there's a strong argument to be made for the China lobby's influence in a Trump presidency and Chinese tech alliances and tech firms and just big Chinese money. Like, there is an argument to be made for there being a conspiracy theory here, but I really don't think that that's actually the point. I don't think that the American citizens going to Red Note are like China loyalists. Like, obviously they don't really give a shit. They're just protesting and making a point that in this day and age, we're all free people and we all have the freedom to make our own choices. And the legacy concept of access being controlled by the government is gone. And it's taking years for the internet to evolve into the, sort of vehicle of freedom that it's eventually becoming, with a strong dose of potential vehicle of tyranny thrown in there. But as it does evolve, and as we all evolve with it in our understanding of like what we can do together and what kind of choice we have and what control we have when we just leverage this tool in our hands, it's pretty cool to watch people find their own solutions to government and to watch us just sort of take control of everything one system at a time. So yeah, everyone's got like some really hot take on it, and it's like either it's the devil or it's like the greatest thing ever and you have to show solidarity. And it's like, yeah, whatever, We don't need to take it all, the world, so seriously, but it is pretty funny to watch. Because as a little brother, I identify strongly with this fuck you energy. Stories like that just give me a lot of hope for our future together on this planet.
If you were to see some of the clips that I have found on TikTok, you'll understand that it wasn't no Chinese infiltration or stealing our data or whatever and what have you. There's so many other ways to go about that, and I knew that right away. But a lot of it comes down to just some of the footage that was coming out of Gaza and what we have done to that territory. It is atrocious. They don't have anything left anymore. It's obliviated, completely gone, like rubble, full on rubble, and these people are living there, and it's really, really sad. And I feel like it garnished a lot of sympathy for Palestine and Gaza. So you can't have that. You just can't have that. So this is just a quick clip of just like some of the stuff that comes out of there. And like I said, it's just really horrendous. Take a quick look. Well, I have to give my opinion, right? I mean, I gotta piss some people off, but ultimately, I am not a fan of Netanyahu or Israel and what they have done, the genocide that they've caused. It's war crimes. It's complete break of the Geneva Code and World Code and everything under the sun. They're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. And I'm not going to get into the politics of that. I will definitely save that for another time, or maybe even when we have a guest on if they want to talk about that a little bit. But I am not down with Israel. So, sorry. And I think a lot of people are starting to see it my way as well, because just some of the war crimes that have come out of there, it's horrendous. Let's see. Next up, Trudeau is stepping down from Canada. This is fabulous. This is great news. Once again, another communist dictator who just has done nothing but absolutely destroy the lives over in Canada, and just made things much worse and hard. And oh yeah, I hate that guy so much. So that was great. That's great. Hopefully sooner the better. I don't really know exactly when this is supposed to happen, or if it's already even had taken place. Like I said, I'm a little bit behind the schedule here, but I thought this clip was kind of funny.
So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the president of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
It's so pathetic. He is so pathetic. I found this clip to be very fascinating. It's a guy, he's basically saying that sugar pretty much immediately shuts down the nervous system. And as much as I know it's processed sugar is detrimental to the body, it's absolutely like full on horrendous for the body. Like, there ain't too many things that come close to that as to what you can put in there, aside just drinking straight up lighter fluid or something. So I thought this clip was interesting because he just kind of goes briefly into how and what it does. It's shutting down the nervous system. So yeah, take a listen to this.
Did you know that sugar, when you eat it, a donut, Pop-Tart, piece of bread, doesn't matter, Kool-Aid, Dr. Pepper, did you know that When you swallow sugar, they have known for 70 years that it goes inside your bone marrow and it suppresses within 45 minutes your body's ability to produce white blood cells that fight infections like bacteria, yeast, viruses, funguses, and parasites. Did you know that it literally shuts off your immune system and makes you more susceptible to all viruses, all infections? And did you know that they compared sugar to prednisone? Prednisone is a steroid. And do you know that its job is to suppress your immune system? In fact, it's called an immune system suppressant. Did you know that sugar suppresses your immune system more than prednisone does? So if you're trying to fight an infection, if you're worried about the bird flu in the future, and I find out you're eating donuts and Pop-Tarts and cereal in the morning.
Yeah, there's a lot of things they've known for a very long time, and corporate America has shielded the truth from you. And it's kind of why I've gone down this path, is because it's infuriating that so many people live with so many health issues, and they don't know why. They don't know why. And there is some level of like ignorance where you kind of know certain things aren't good for you, but you don't know the scope of it. And even RFK, Bobby Kennedy, has just started talking about that. Like you should be able to eat McDonald's. You should be able to eat Twinkies. You should be able to have anything you want, but you should definitely know and be properly labeled, like how detrimental it really is to your health. So that way there you kind of know what you're getting into. I thought that was fascinating. He goes on to explain that we lead the world in having the highest rate of diabetes, obesity, and we have the highest rate of health issues above any other country in the world. I'm like, that's shocking. I knew it was bad. I did know it was bad, but that's bad. Like, damn. We are really, really, really unhealthy. So Monsanto, Bayer, whatever, the GMOs and, these conglomerates are still in power. Make no mistake. And you can't wait for legislation and law because it might take a long time. In fact, this is the closest we've come to anything like that. Like, this is groundbreaking. This is beautiful. But you can't wait for the government to take action. There's still a shit ton of horrible stuff on the shelves, and I have a funny feeling it's going to be there for quite some time. It's going to take a lot of legislation. It's going to take a lot of things to get things to really start changing things. At least I think. So ultimately, don't wait. Don't wait. Start researching. And this is completely the reason why I eat organic food, because it is a cesspool of chemicals out there that are super detrimental to the body and the mind.
My name is Courtney Swan. I have a Master's of Science in Nutrition, and I host the Real Foodology podcast, and thank you so much for listening to us today. Our food is being tainted by dangerous chemicals, and it's making us sick. In 2009, I started to get debilitating stomach aches. I bounced around between specialists with no clarity for 2 years until 2011, when I was diagnosed with a gluten intolerance. I was also told to avoid corn and soy, which are common food sensitivities amongst my generation. Unfortunately, my story is not unique. Clueless to how this was connected to our food system, I started to do some digging. What I found was alarming. Our current agriculture system origin story involves large chemical companies, not farmers, chemists. 85% of the food that you are consuming started from a patented seed sold by a chemical corporation that was responsible for creating Agent Orange in the Vietnam War. Why are chemical companies feeding America? Corn, soy, and wheat are not only the most common allergens, but are among the most heavily pesticide-sprayed crops today. In 1974, the U.S. started spraying our crops with an herbicide called glyphosate. And in the early 1990s, we began to see the release of genetically modified foods into our food supply. It all seems to begin with a chemical company by the name IG Farben, the later parent company of Bayer. Farben provided the chemicals used in Nazi nerve agents and gas chambers. Years later, a second chemical company, Monsanto, joined the war industry with the production of Agent Orange, a toxin used during the Vietnam War. When the wars ended, these companies needed a market for their chemicals. So they pivoted to killing bugs and pests on American farmlands. Monsanto began marketing glyphosate with the catchy name Roundup. They claimed that these chemicals were harmless and that they safeguarded our crops from pests. So farmers started spraying these supposedly safe chemicals on our farmland. They solved the bug problem, but they also killed the crops. Monsanto offered a solution with the creation of genetically modified, otherwise known as GMO crops that resisted the glyphosate in the Roundup that they were spraying. These Roundup-ready crops allow farmers to spray entire fields with glyphosate to kill off pests without harming the plants. But our food is left covered in toxic chemical residue that doesn't wash, dry, or cook off. Not only is it sprayed to kill pests, but in the final stages of harvest, it is sprayed on the wheat to dry it out. Grains that go into bread and cereals that are in grocery stores and homes of Americans are heavily sprayed with these toxins. It's also being sprayed on oats, chickpeas, almonds, potatoes, and more. You can assume that if it's not organic, it is likely contaminated with glyphosate. In America, organic food by law cannot contain GMOs and glyphosate, and they are more expensive compared to conventionally grown options. Americans are being forced to pay more for food that isn't poisoned. The Environmental Working Group reported a test of popular wheat-based products and found glyphosate contamination in 80 to 90% of the products on grocery store shelves. Popular foods like Cheerios, Goldfish, chickpea pasta like Bonza, Nature Valley bars were found to have concerning levels of glyphosate. If that is not alarming enough, glyphosate is produced by and distributed from China. In 2018, Bayer bought Monsanto. They currently have patented soybeans, corn, canola, and sugar beets, and they are the largest distributor of GMO corn and soybean seeds. Americans deserve a straight answer. Why does an agrochemical company own where our food comes from? Currently, 85 to 100% of corn and soy crops in the U.S. are genetically modified. 80% of GMOs are engineered to withstand glyphosate. And a staggering 280 million pounds of glyphosate are sprayed on American crops annually. We are eating this Roundup-ready corn, but unlike GMO crops, humans are not Roundup-ready. We are not resistant to these toxins, and it's causing neurological damage, endocrine disruption. It's harming our reproductive health, and it's affecting fetal development. Glyphosate is classified as a carcinogen by the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer. It is also suspected to contribute towards the rise in celiac disease and gluten sensitivities. They're finding glyphosate in human breast milk, placentas, our organs, and even sperm. It's also being found in our rain and our drinking water. Until January of 2022, many companies made efforts to obscure the presence of GMOs and pesticides in food products from American consumers. It was only then that legislation came into effect mandating that these companies disclose such ingredients with a straightforward label stating made with bioengineered ingredients, but it's very small on the package. Meanwhile, glyphosate still isn't labeled on our food. Parents in America are unknowingly feeding their children these toxic foods. Dr. Don Huber, a glyphosate researcher, warns that glyphosate will make the outlawed 1970s insecticide DDT look harmless in comparison to glyphosate. Why is the US government subsidizing the most pesticide-sprayed crops using taxpayer dollars? These are the exact foods that are driving the epidemic of chronic disease. These crops, heavily sprayed with glyphosate, are then processed into high fructose corn syrup and refined vegetable oils, which are key ingredients for the ultra-processed foods that line our supermarket shelves and fill our children's lunches in schools across the nation. Children across America are consuming foods such as Goldfish and Cheerios that are loaded with glyphosate. These crops also feed our livestock, which then produce the eggs, dairy, and meat products that we consume. They are in everything. Pick up almost any ultra-processed food package on the shelf and you will see the words contains corn, wheat, and soy on the ingredients panel. Meanwhile, Bayer is doing everything it can to keep consumers in the dark while our government protects these corporate giants. They fund educational programs at major agricultural universities, they lobby in Washington, and they collaborate with lawmakers to protect their profits over public health. 2 congressmen are working with Bayer right now on the Farm Bill to protect Bayer from any liability despite already having to pay out billions to sick Americans who got cancer from their product. They know that their product is harming people. Chronic illnesses are on the rise, and half of our population is obese. This is a national security issue. 77% of young Americans are ineligible for military service. We have industrialized our food at the expense of our health, prioritizing profits over people to the point where our bodies can no longer cope with this chemical assault. We must stop subsidizing the foods that make us sick. We must prioritize people over profit. This isn't just about policy, it's about survival. Let's create a future where our food system is designed to nourish us and not destroy us. Thank you.
This was an interesting one. I didn't even know this. I just assumed that it was already a thing, but Mexico is now using GMO corn for their tortillas. And like I said, I wasn't really aware of this, but I think there was like provisions in place that didn't allow GMO corn to be grown in Mexico, but apparently a deal went down and they're now using it. I particularly go for the organic tortillas, but you know, how many people don't and what have you. So yeah, here's a quick clip of that.
Last week, the U.S. bullied Mexico into allowing genetically modified corn in tortillas. Mexico tried to ban GM corn sprayed with glyphosate from tortillas to protect public health and the environment. But under the trade agreement we have with Mexico, the USMCA, they're not allowed to decide what they'll import. We did the same thing to Thailand back in 2019. Mexico argued that GM corn and glyphosate are linked to cancer and other illnesses. They even cited hundreds of studies. Come on. Monsanto's paid $11 billion to settle nearly 100,000 lawsuits alleging exposure to glyphosate causes cancer. But the trade panel hearing the case would have none of it. Mexicans eat more corn than anyone else in the world, so this decision directly impacts their health. Too bad, the panel said. Who really wins here? U.S. and Chinese agrochemical corporations like Bayer and Syngenta, who pushed hard to keep Roundup-ready genetically modified corn on the market. You see, once farmers plant these seeds, they have to buy them again every year because the seeds GM corn produces are sterile and they won't propagate a next generation the way open-pollinated heirloom seeds do. Mexico says this ruling leads to a loss of their seed and food sovereignty because eventually the GMO corn cross-pollinates with their heirloom varieties and they're changed forever. They view it as agricultural colonialism, and I got to agree with them. This is a global battle over food safety, and it's not even a fair fight. Makes me ashamed of my country's behavior.
Well, they knew, and that's a thing on the books. They cause cancer, but they don't care. They don't care. Profits need to go up. It's insane. It's really insane. Disheartening, to say the least. But, well, just do your due diligence, research, and get the clean stuff until this gets all sorted out. But yeah, glyphosate is horrendous, absolutely horrendous. And it's in just about everything, like I said. If it's not organic, odds are it's probably littered with glyphosate. So there you have it. Thanks, government, for protecting us. Like I said, this is a little bit older stuff, so we're going to see how long it takes for Kennedy to get his hands on this stuff. So moving along, I thought this was an interesting clip because this was something that Ron Paul used to hit on a lot. And it's kind of like common sense to some degree. Not for everybody. Not too common. But this is what one CIA operative, he wrote a book. It was called, I have it. It's put away. But it's called Blowback. And Glenn Greenwald, which... he's a pretty chill dude. He blasts. Okay, so he goes on to blast Bill Maher, and I particularly don't like this guy at all. Every once in a while he'll have something decent to say, but once again, this is like common sense, but it was refreshing to hear again from Glenn Greenwald, and yeah, so just take a quick listen to this. I thought it was a good one.
Lots of religions, not just Islam, produce violence. It was our government that kept Mubarak in power, just like we've done across the entire Muslim world. And it's amazing for you to say that, well, look at all these Muslims, the minute you give them a little bit of freedom, they go wild and they start being all violent. How can you be a citizen of the United States, the country that has generated more violence and militarism in the world over the last 5 or 6 decades, and say, look at those people over there, they are incredibly violent? We play a significant role in what has been happening in the Middle East because we've been interfering and dominating that region in order to have access to the oil.
I wasn't talking about violence. I was talking about theocracy. That doesn't happen here.
No, well, okay, that doesn't happen here, but at the same time, Iran isn't invading lots of other countries and occupying them for a decade, nor are fundamentalist Muslim countries the way the United States is. So these things are interlinked because we are continuously interfering in that part of the world. And so to say...
Really, it's all our fault?
It's not all our fault, but when you send your military for 6 straight decades into other countries to bomb them, kill their children and women and innocent men, prop up dictators, you take responsibility for your actions and say, to the extent that that region...
That religion goes back 1,000 years before our revolution, so I don't think we can take all the blame.
I don't think we should. I think we should take a lot of it. And there's lots of bodies and corpses that have been piled up in the name of Christianity and Judaism as well.
Not recently.
Have you heard of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza for the last 50 years, motivated in part by extremist views of Judaism, or the wars in Europe, or the fact that there were generals in the United States saying we have to go and invade and destroy Iraq, a country of 26 million people, because our God is bigger? Lots of religions, not just Islam, produce violence.
Well, if I could just make one quick point about Egypt.
That silly liberal view that all religions are alike because it makes you feel good.
No, it makes you feel good to say our side is better. Those people over there are primitive and violent.
No, it makes you feel good to put a crown on your head and say, I'm a good person. How do I prove that?
You get to ignore the responsibility that your own government has for the violence and instability in the world by saying, look, it's that primitive religion over there that's to blame.
As I said before, I'm going to be a little bit all over the place. But there was a woman who wanted me to talk a little bit more about this. I don't know how in depth I'm going to go right now, but AI is the thing of the future. It's coming up. It's growing. It's becoming smarter. There's a bunch of stories just on AI alone where it didn't allow the company to shut itself down, and it started replicating itself and backing itself up, and some weird stories. I can't even truly wrap my head around it, but maybe we'll do a show just on that specifically. But I can tell you this: the moment it was made and built, it was already being weaponized by the government. And this is just a small little scale of this as to what I'm talking about. This can be applied into so many different aspects, and I can't even, like I said, wrap my head around it. But it's just wild how new technology comes out, and the very first thing the government does is weaponize it against its people. So this is just a clip of a woman talking about how the IRS is using it to sift through all the stuff. And not only that, but they're using it illegally. You don't have any more privacy anymore. You're already guilty before being proven innocent. And you should have... That's the Constitution. Going back to the Constitution, your privacy should be protected. That is essentially the only role of the government, is to protect its citizens and its privacy, its papers, its effects. I rest my case. But anyway, take a listen to this, just in case, of course, people don't believe that, this is happening. But yeah, it's happening. Will it change? I don't know. The IRS essentially is a private organization. They're not even part of the government. It's a hired arm of the government, but they're not associated or affiliated. They work above the law, which they're like, no one's above the law. Yeah, well, they're above the law because they're doing stuff like this, and it's just normalized. It's cool. It's all right. It's all good.
What we have learned is that the IRS, in fact, has been using AI to access bank accounts of American citizens without any kind of a search warrant or even without any specific claim that they have committed a crime. So this was something that was discovered by an undercover journalist, and what they found is that the IRS has claimed that they have access to every single person's bank account. This person also indicated that they've been working with the Department of Justice and that they have absolutely no problem whatsoever going after the little guy to make sure that they are paying their taxes. This is such a blatant violation of the Fourth Amendment that Jim Jordan and I sent a letter to the IRS demanding that they provide additional information about what they are doing with AI and what they are doing to protect the civil rights of American citizens.
So, Congresswoman, what's the end game here? Because at the end of the day, you can't put the AI genie back in the bottle, and it's so easy to use these technologies in the way that you're suspecting the IRS is. How do you protect American citizens and our constitutional rights?
Well, one of the things is we need a new administration in November, because this administration has been absolutely lawless in terms of its surveillance of us, of members of Congress, of local officials, of people who are protesters, of voters. This administration has completely ignored the Bill of Rights, whether it's the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment. They have weaponized the government against us. So one of the things
So one of the points that I kind of want to drive home with this is that, like, no matter what it is, all this, any new technology, it's like immediately used against us, and it pisses me off. It's like, this is straight on the Matrix. How can you even deny that that this isn't the Matrix? And this goes for anything. Even social media has been weaponized against us. It literally, I can't even get into all the levels of that. There were some good documentaries on Netflix just about that alone, but just the level of spying and invasiveness of social media, and I hate to say it, here I go, full conspiracy theorist, but it was built, funded, seeded by your tax dollars. It's government run. Mark Zuckerberg is a face, but ultimately it's run by the government. They've been using it, and we've heard so throughout what's been going on, like even with TikTok and social media. They want to rein it in, and I've been talking about this like on almost every single one of them. It's because, well, they need control of the narrative. They need control of free speech. They need control of your ideas. They don't want you to have specific opinions, and if you do, you're out. You're done. They'll shut you down. And the implications of this are beyond, like I said, the imagination. You'd be bugging to see even just a couple of things that I've seen. Like, it's mind-blowing. It's not right, but it is happening. So something to be mindful of. Once again, we'll probably hit a little bit further into that at some point. Not right now. We're going to just keep moving forward. We got a bunch of clips, so moving along. A lot of talk about the insider trading that's been going on. Nancy Pelosi, I guess it's starting to gain a little more traction. There's a lot more people starting to catch on to the insider trading and the corruption that runs right through our elected officials, our handlers, and Nancy Pelosi has been subpoenaed. Yes. About freaking time. I mean, how many millions of dollars does she have to steal before you figure this out?
This is to notify you formally, pursuant to Rule 8 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, that I, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi, Speaker Emerita and U.S. Representative for the 11th Congressional District of California, have been served with third-party subpoenas from the prosecution and the defendant to produce documents in a criminal case in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California.
And just when you thought the corruption was just with a little insider trading and what have you, this should blow your mind. And kind of going into, like, right now, current affairs, politics, but a lot of people are pissed off already that what Trump's doing and Elon and Doji, they're already finding all this money that has been mismanaged, misplaced, or it was going to go to something corrupt or some weird bill or whatever. So this is, like I said, this should burn you right up. But this is your tax dollars. This is your money. We are sending between 40 and I guess $87 million a week. You ready for this? To the Taliban. What? What? I know. You probably didn't think you heard me right, but yes. Between 40 and $87 million a week go to the Taliban. You know, our enemies. What the hell is going on? No wonder we're falling. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I have no words for it. I really don't. It's mind-blowing. But here, take a listen to this clip. It kind of spells it out for you. This is some deep stuff here. Like, I don't know what's going on. But I do. I do know what's going on. I just have a hard time believing it sometimes. It's pretty wild times we're living in for sure.
Gentleman who was in Afghan resistance fighter, goes by the call sign Legend to keep his identity concealed. And so an Afghan resistance fighter, for those of you that don't know, those were our allies that we spent 20 plus years fighting alongside with, training to kill terrorist organizations. And he came on to break the story that the current administration is sending $40 million a week to the Taliban, which is one of the terrorist organizations that we spent 20 plus years fighting.
U.S. taxpayer money right now is funding the Taliban. Now, your viewers may be shocked and they may say, oh, Legend is lying. It can't be possible that I am with the resistance, so I may be biased.
We're now giving the Taliban $40 million a week. Did you know that?
I'm not surprised at all.
$40 million a week. Do you know what the government would have done if I would have done a $5 donation to the Taliban 10 years ago?
Cuffed and stuff.
They just admitted $239 million went to them.
I cannot assure the American people that their tax dollars are not funding the Taliban.
You're funding them. I'm funding them.
Right.
Everybody that's paying U.S. taxes, Commander Massoud, or do you know who that is?
I do.
By chance?
Yeah.
The leader of the Afghan resistance,
Yeah.
because this administration's sending $87 million a week over to the Taliban.
This other friend is a former U.S. Army soldier and citizen of Afghanistan. He recently revealed that the U.S. continues to send the Taliban $40 million weekly. Are you aware of this?
And the idea that we're now sending hundreds of millions of dollars to the Taliban after they've taken complete control of the country, and of course they've got a lot of our military equipment there, it's completely insane.
Well, let's discuss the $40 million weekly payment the United States is making to the Afghan Central Bank. And if it's fallen into Taliban hands, I think it's very timely since we're approaching our tax day. Let you know where some of your tax dollars are going. What's your thoughts on that?
The short answer, Your Excellency, is yes.
Congressman, you're introducing a bill in Congress that would stop the Taliban from getting U.S. tax dollars. I can't believe it, and I'm sure all Americans watching right now cannot believe that that's even a headline that I'm having to ask you about this bill.
Our tax dollars are going to the Taliban. It's not just internet tinfoil hat-wearing people like Tim Burchett. This is actually going on.
Tim, you wrote up a bill. What was that initial bill?
You just basically cut off funding to the Taliban, taxpayers' dollars.
You've got to watch this State Department crowd. When Trump gets back in, he better clean house. He better go through there like Grant through Richmond.
We wanted to get in front of Congress to warn us about the oncoming threat that we're facing because we're funding the Taliban.
Yep.
And if it hadn't been for you and Legend and some others,
Scott Mann and Sarah Adams, I mean, we're funding them again, right?
I think we send like $40 million a week.
$40 million a week goes to Taliban.
Yes.
9/11 was a $500,000 budget.
Yep.
Now the government has come out and publicly said that they have accidentally given them $239 million.
And it's like I said, it's your tax dollars. It's your tax dollars going to the very individuals who killed hundreds and thousands of American soldiers, injured so many Americans, killed hundreds of thousands of Afghans, and right now they're hosting Al-Qaeda and ISIS and everyone else who are planning to attack you again. And you're funding it.
What you can bet on is that they are going to outdo the last attack, and they are going to do it at such a level of emotional impact that we will have no choice but to respond, because it's going to take us into a sympathetic state. And all of these folks that have written checks to the Taliban and done all these ill-advised policy moves, they'll just skulk back into the shadows. They'll disappear.
Passed the House, and it's sitting there. Schumer won't even address it. And I've talked to multiple senators. They're going to try to attach it to this bill, Now, that should be, Americans should just come unglued. Do you think that'd be a #1 story with the legacy media?
So this isn't negligence.
It's by design. It looks that way from my point of view.
I don't see how you could see it any other way.
I agree. But then again, it's all up to the American people.
Well, my friend Legend, an Afghan-American and former U.S. Army non-commissioned officers, traveled to Afghanistan after the collapse and reports that the Taliban has been benefiting from U.S. cash shipments sent to the Afghan central bank. This is American funds, and that sanctioned terrorists are diverting U.S. aid meant for the Afghan people. Why are we giving the Taliban millions in taxpayers' dollars while they hold Americans hostage and are killing the Afghan people?
Of the approximately $8 billion that the international community, including the United States, has dedicated to Afghanistan, about $10 million of that is 0.1%, has no doubt gotten to the Taliban.
I don't care if it's that young penny. I don't care if it's a penny. I mean, for you to sit up here and admit.
Now, what you do at this point after you have investigated these matters, that's the only thing that matters.
Next, I want to talk about a little bit just of a topic that I like to bring up here and there. And like I said, I would love to do a whole episode on it eventually, but here's the inside of a weather modification hub out in Dubai. And this is fascinating because they're showing, I was even shocked to even see that they were showing us this, but this is a global initiative. This is going on around the world. It's called geoengineering. This is just a brief insight into some of the weather modification, weather control. I know it's hard to believe or wrap your head around that one, but that we have some wild technology. And this, what they're showing us right here, goes back to the 50s, 1950s, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even earlier. But this is the old technology. This is the stuff that they can show you. And I don't know if you remember hearing about it, but not too long ago, I think it was even last year, at some point where Dubai had massive flooding. Essentially, they turned on the water and they couldn't shut it off. It disrupted the balance a month or two, and they're essentially like swimming in the street. And well, like I said, this is just a quick clip into that, so take a listen to it. I thought it was very fascinating because a lot of people are just not on board with that. They don't believe that we've been doing this for a very long time.
The UAE government invested more than $20 million in research to start a process called cloud seeding. The UAE performs around 1,000 hours of cloud seeding a year, and it's all controlled by this building in the National Center of Meteorology in Abu Dhabi, where they track the whole process. We met with a cloud seeding expert to explain how the seeding process works.
We wait the forecast. When we have a good, chance for a cloud, we send the aircraft to that location. It go under the cloud. In the first stage of the cloud, there is good updraft at that time, start to release all the salt, and with the good updraft, of course, it will go inside the cloud. The droplets will become bigger and start to rain.
The center manufactures a salt substance that helps enhance rainfall. They put them in what they call flares. This is a sample plane here at the National Center of Meteorology, but the real planes fly out from the runways in Al Ain.
Operation 219.
We also spoke to one of the weather forecasters. He explains how the operations work.
We align our pilots to be on the airports and tell them when to be at the airport. So as expected, we wait for the clouds to appear on the radar, and there we have our pilots talking to us. Let me know if there is any updrafts in your area.
Is it going to rain in Dubai today? Just so I know. I have to drive back from Abu Dhabi to Dubai.
No.
It's not raining. It's a sunny day.
So our last topic, always saving the best for last, but well, you may or may not know already that I am heavy anti-vaxxer. And well, I love a little bit of the vindication that's been going on with everything in the news and the Congress and Robert F. Kennedy really starting to jump into this subject. We'll start with this clip. It's Florida is essentially trying to ban the COVID vaccine because they have labeled it or trying to label it as a bioweapon. And that's not the first time that's been heard like that. Quite a few other people have that same opinion on it. But anyway, here, take a listen to this.
COVID vaccine turns out it's back in the news.
Republican Party leaders on the Space Coast are minutes away from officially calling on the governor and other state leaders to ban mRNA-based COVID vaccines immediately. I-Team Chief Investigator Mike Magnoli has more on what exactly is going on. Mike.
Good evening, everybody. Well, in their own words, the leaders of Brevard County's GOP say that they believe the vaccines are a biological weapon. As you say, this is the executive committee of the party in Brevard. They haven't hit send on this letter yet, but that vote coming up at 6:30, and I'm told it's very likely going to pass. If it does, they're asking state leadership to make it illegal to give or to take mRNA vaccines in Florida.
In this 4-page letter, complete with footnotes, Brevard County Republicans cite sources which led them to a stunning conclusion. Here it is in their own words. Government agencies, media, and tech companies and other corporations have committed enormous fraud by claiming COVID-19 injections are safe and effective. Strong and credible evidence has recently been revealed that COVID-19 and COVID-19 injections are biological and technological weapons. If approved, this letter will be sent to Tallahassee at a time when a grand jury, requested by Governor DeSantis, is investigating those very same vaccines. That grand jury's job is to determine whether pharmaceutical giants who...
Well, good. It's about time. And they're not the only ones. There's other states that have tried to move into straight up banning it completely and going after the manufacturers to the best of their ability. A lot of them have blanket immunity and they can't be touched, which I'm going to save for the next podcast because we're blasting Robert F. Kennedy because he wants to essentially remove that immunity and to go after them, to hold them liable. And Nancy Pelosi herself, well, not Nancy Pelosi, I'm sorry. I don't even remember her name. But yeah, anyway, they're really fighting him tooth and nail on it. Not concerned with, hey, you know, why would they go bankrupt? No, they're actually saying they will go bankrupt if he does what he does. And it's such red flags. But we're going to save that for the next one coming out real soon. I'm putting that one together right after I'm done with this one. So this guy has been doing research and immunization and biotech for over 30 years. And are you going to listen to the doctors who are pushing the drugs and not really telling you anything or giving you any sort of anything on it? Like, it's called informed consent, where they have to tell you under oath, like that's their Hippocratic oath to become a doctor. Like, they have to tell you the side effects, the risk of any medication that they're going to give you, or any procedure, or anything that you have that they might want to give you. And you're going to listen to that when someone's not even giving you the right information, or you're going to listen to this guy who's in it, who's sounds like a lead head scientist, who's pretty much given up his career and staking himself, nailing himself to bring you this information. So I'm going to listen to him. I take everything with a grain of salt. You do your own research. You listen to whoever you want to listen to, but this is pretty telling.
If you've followed me, you'll know I over 30 years in research in the pharmaceutical industry and biotech. I trained in toxicology and I worked with colleagues designing experimental molecules that we hoped would become medicines. That gives me the credentials to stand, as it were, in the shoes of the designers of these vaccines and answer the question, what were you thinking when you made these design decisions? Now, you can go and watch any of my interviews, but I'll cut to the chase. And you may not believe it, but I am sure, not slightly, but sure, these materials were designed intentionally to harm, maim, and kill, and to reduce human fertility. That is my verdict, and I can stand it up. I will be in court, Supreme Court in Costa Rica very shortly, and I'll be using exactly this argument, but I will give the detail. That's the first point. So don't take these injectables. Don't take the next lot either. They will also be designed to harm you. All mRNA-based materials are dangerous. Don't take them.
And he's not the only one. There's been hundreds, thousands of scientists, doctors, ringing the warning bells for a very long time. I wouldn't have taken my stance on it if I haven't been exposed to a lot of this stuff early on. I've been studying it and reading it for over 15 years, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even longer, probably even longer, but there's a lot of information out there, and it's coming out now back where, well, when the internet wasn't so censored and you could get you had a lot easier time finding some of this information, but it got suppressed. It's been scrubbed. A lot of it's making its way back due to the platforms easing up because, well, you know, they've lost a lot of business and a lot of people were jumping onto X. And yeah, well, that's how it is. Once again, thank you, Elon, for saving free speech. Unbelievable. Oh, yeah, that's right. By the way, yeah, he's a Nazi now, I heard. Oh my God. Wild. Such wild times. Anyway, yeah, believe what you want on that too. But yeah, here's another fascinating interview done with Tucker Carlson. Mind-blowing, very disturbing, very uncomfortable to watch. And I didn't even know that Tucker Carlson has a vaccine-injured child too, and he admits that in this video, and I guess that was kind of news.
Let me explain to you why some people oppose the MMR vaccine. In every single dose of an MMR shot, there are literally millions of pieces from the cultured cell line of an aborted fetus in every single injection. Now, again, that might sound crazy, but I could literally pull up right now the CDC's own ingredient list for the MMR vaccine. Anybody can do this at home. Just Google vaccine excipient list, CDC, and you can pull it up and you could see it has MRC5, WI38. Those are cultured cell lines from aborted fetus because you have to grow viruses in a cell. Viruses won't just grow. They have to grow in cells. That's how they replicate. They take over the machinery of a cell. So you have to grow it on a cellular substrate. So how do they grow the rubella virus? They grow it on these cultured cell lines from aborted fetus.
Where do they get aborted fetuses?
From babies that are aborted.
From abortion clinics.
It has to be. You can't use. So the cells need to be alive. Okay, so you understand, like the aborted fetal tissue has to remain alive to be used, And so, I deposed, for example, the world's leading vaccinologist, Dr. Stanley Plotkin, and that deposition is actually available on thehighwire.com. The whole deposition, 9 hours, is available there. Okay.
Parts of it are available on X, and
yes,
I watched part of it in preparation for this interview, and was, so shocked and revolted by it. I was already on your side, obviously, as a parent of a child who was vaccine injured. So I'm in tune with everything you're saying. But that deposition with Dr. Stanley Plotkin, who's still alive, 93, I checked, was one of the most shocking things I've ever seen in my life.
You watched the whole thing?
No. I watched selections of it.
Okay, yeah. And so then about what the clip I'm about to talk about, which is relating to just one study that was done that involved over 70 normal, healthy fetuses, right? There was nothing wrong, no abnormalities that were aborted for the purposes of this one study. I mean,
past the first trimester, but they're all older than 3 months, he said.
That's right. And some of them, absolutely. And what they do is they take those, in that one study, those 70-something babies, and they then they chop them up into little each body part. So they take the tongue, the lung, the liver, every body part, and they chop them up into little cubes, and then they try to culture viruses on them because they want to see which part of the body is the best suited for growing the virus used in the vaccine. And so this is, in any event, and there's a lot, anybody who wants can research about this.
So this is answering the question, why is this a religion for some people? There's some heavy stuff going on.
You mean for folks who don't want to receive the vaccine?
No. For people who support them.
Well, there's a
human sacrifice quality here. Sorry. That was my takeaway from that interview. And I think you actually asked him, are you an atheist? Yes, I am.
Yes. Well, the case was about a religious belief that our client had, contrary to the practice of vaccination. They didn't want to vaccinate her kid. And he decided to volunteer, for reasons I'll never understand, to be an expert. And he came to the deposition. He didn't come to trial. He did not show up for trial. We even sent him a subpoena ducis tecum after the deposition. If you ever see the deposition, he says, "Oh, well, there is this or there's that." And so I sent him a document request saying, "Hey, you said there's this and that. Give it to us." And then he brought a collateral lawsuit to quash that subpoena, believe it or not, because he did not want to give it, because they don't have it. It doesn't exist. Just like this polio petition. It's not, I don't ask for things, we do, I try to do my homework beforehand. In any event,
this vaccines are grown with the cells of aborted baby tongues.
Well, no. Well, let me be clear about that. In that study, they were trying to figure out which body part was best to use. So the one that they ended up with was actually from the lung of the aborted baby. Aborted fetus. So it's lung fibroblasts are where the cells the substrate that ended up working. So they tried with tongue, it didn't work as well. And there's a number of qualities they're looking for. How well does the virus replicate? Are there other potential, viruses back, and so forth and so forth. Well, what's the best median to do it in? And so there's.
But you said that the cells have to be alive. So where do the bodies come from? Do we know?
When the baby is aborted for the purposes, and they're typically aborted for the scientific purpose, right? I mean, they have to know beforehand for the most part, because if they abort the baby and they don't immediately act to make sure that the tissues don't die, then you can't use them in these experiments. So, and this is. I'm
about as uncomfortable as I've ever been in an interview right now. This is like really beyond that this happens.
Well, there you have it. And I've been preaching that for a long time, and a lot of people do not believe it, but he lays it out for you. And you can look that stuff up yourself. That's all right there. That is accessible. Just find the vaccine. If I'm not mistaken, more than half of all vaccines are cultured in the aborted fetal cells. And yeah, that's just some disturbing stuff. That's some weird, dark, satanic stuff. And I'm sorry, that just doesn't yell health to me. Never has. And I'll keep preaching it, that health can't be found in a needle. That's why we have some of the sickest people in this country, because of the vaccine schedule. And that's, once again, my opinion. Don't care how you feel about it. The truth will come out soon enough. Time will tell. Until then, I would definitely do your own research. Don't take my word for it. Absolutely not. Don't take any of these people's words for it. Do your own research. Start digging into it. You can find the inserts come with them. You can look up online. The CDC has stuff. All sorts of things. He was telling you right there, like you can just go and download PDFs. It's all right there. If you're willing to look for it, you have to be willing. And with that said, I think we're going to leave it there. There's so much been going on, so I'm going to try to keep up, and I'll do my best with it, find some of the stuff that I think you guys would like. If you like what I'm doing here, if you like the content, if you want to help the channel, please like, subscribe, share our channel, send it off on social media, do your thing, get the word out. Thanks for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. With that said, have a great day. Valhalla.
This is where we hold them. This is where we fight. This is where they die. And these shields, boys. Remember this day, man, for it will be yours for all time.